Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello all and welcome to the EarthWorks podcast. This week I am your host, Mr. Jack Higgins, and I am here with Chuck Szczurek over at Middletown Country Club in Langhorne, PA. Chuck.
How you doing?
Good, buddy. Thanks for having me out here.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that a lot of EarthWorks podcast listeners would know your name from your Twitter handle, dude.
Yeah.
Because you're pretty active on there. What is your handle, by the way?
Let's see, HCMS Turf on Twitter.
Yeah,
so.
Excellent. Yeah, so you've done some cool things because, like, you've been here for a year, right?
Yeah, just over a year. I came on in March of 2022 is when I officially signed my contract. So
okay, and and you've made some big changes pretty quickly, like, and that's kind of what I'm referring to on Twitter, because you've posted a lot of like before and afters and like, check this out, look at what we did, and really, eye popping stuff, head turners.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just coming in here, assessing what the paying members wanted, what the regular golfers wanted, and then honestly, an hour or two online, looking at Google reviews, Golf Now reviews, and finding out where they felt the weaknesses were, and then last year, because this is my first time managing a course that is wall-to-wall ride with the exception of the greens that are bent, I think last year was more about improving what I can and just keeping everything alive and learning how the grass handles, the stressors, that we put out there. But, I mean, overall, I can't do it without the crew, and that's the whole thing. It's like I'm hired as the superintendent, but no man is an island, and I can't do it alone. I might have the training, I might have the experience, but if I don't have a crew that's on board with me, I'm still by myself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, you got 18 holes out here. Let's give a little background on Middletown Country Club. You mentioned it's a 1913 built golf course.
Yeah, its inception was Langhorne Country Club, I believe back in like 1913. At some point along the line, I'm not exactly sure when, it became Middletown Country Club. I'm not sure if that was a township thing or Langhorne Borough wanted to change it up. But, so, yeah, I mean, this is an old course. I had told you earlier, I joked around, there's a good chance that George Washington and the troops made their way up to Trenton up here on Christmas Eve, for all we know.
Absolutely. Everything around here is Washington.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Like Washington ate here, Washington slept here.
Yeah, exactly. And when you drive through the borough, you can see it, especially when you're driving up Bellevue to the entrance to the clubhouse. There's some houses that have their historical placards on it, 1782, 1797.
There's a public house on the corner, the Langhorne Hotel. That
1797. And
wow.
That's a great place to eat, too. But when you go in there, they have the original pine and oak timbers, rafters going through the roof, for the cross members and everything. So
cool.
with the people were smaller back then, too. I mean, the ceilings are only like 7 foot high, so door frames are 6.5 foot. So if you jump, there's a good chance.
Yeah, it doesn't work for you guys
exactly.
like you and me.
So, but yeah, at some point it became Middletown Country Club, and it's the one historical marker we got here as far as like notoriety or anything is Gary Player.
Okay.
Gary Player was from the area, and if you ever hear him introduced at the Masters or somewhere else, he will be introduced as Gary Player from Langhorne Country Club or something like that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was up here, I believe, in 2020, and we have pictures down Heritage Hallway on the back side of the bar here in the clubhouse, and he was here, and he, just loved to play here, and he always considered this his home course.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah,
it's really cool. It's I mean, we drove around. I haven't played here, but it's a challenging layout because you can tell it's an old golf course because the layout is, not to say it looks short, but like it's it's really built into the land, so there seems to be a lot of target golf, a lot of kind of elevation change and slope and side slope and that sort of thing driving around. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's only maybe, if I had to put it out there, I would say there may be like 3 or 4 fairways that you would consider flat that don't have at least a 5 to 10% grade on them.
Right.
You know, in one direction or another, whether it be left to right, whether it be from green to tee, you know, in that direction or anything like that. So, there aren't a lot of walkers here. You know, I mean, it is, you know, a very challenging course, geographically speaking, for Lower Bucks County. From what I've been told, the one peak next to the 4th green, there's a plateau there, and apparently that's the highest geographical point in Lower Bucks County. It's either there or at the top of one fairway. One of those 2 areas is what I was told. So, you know, I only live 10 minutes away, and that's great.
Yeah,
you
how
know,
wonderful is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's better than the 25, 30-minute commute I was making before. And
yeah, for a guy that's been in the golf business for how long?
I started caddying in 93.
Okay.
I went over to the grounds crew in 96. At that point, it was Tarsdale Frankfurt Country Club, now Union League Golf Club at Tarsdale. And I've been in the game, you know, in this game ever since.
So, yeah, for a guy that's been in the golf business for 30 years, now you got a head superintendent's job and you're 3 miles from your house.
Exactly. But, I mean, that's the thing. Like, the elevation changes here. There have been numerous times in the fall and in the winter. I leave my house, no frost. And I get here and I drive up the hill, and I've mapped it out. There's only, like, I think it's something like a 70-foot rise in elevation from my house to the course. And we have a frost delay here, you know.
It makes sense. I mean, you can tell would be a lot of cold pockets out there. You're driving around, like a lot, you know, dips and valleys and that whole thing. So let's see, kind of reviewing more about the course. Tell us, first of all, it's scorching hot today. We were just driving around. It's like 95 degrees out. Yeah. Second day of June. You're ryegrass and bentgrass, right?
Yeah.
Your rye tees and fairways and
rye tee to fairways, rough. Everything is rye, wall to wall, except for the greens are bent. And
old Penn cross Penn greens.
Yeah, it's old Penn Cross original. There has been some overseeding. Piranha was in there. I know there's some 007 that's mixed in. So, I mean, eventually the plan is over the next year and a half, going to start slit seeding in, you know, better varieties with, you know, the grass. And, I mean, so far, you know, like you said, it has its peaks and valleys. Some greens are different. I mean, I have 4 different type of constructions out there for greens. I have a California style green.
Oh, wow.
I have USGA. I have modified push-up, and I have original push-up with native soil in the originals.
Wow.
Yeah, so, you know, finding that mix, you know, where every green is going to respond the way you want to, you know, that, I mean, like I said earlier, the learning curve last year, you know, was pretty extensive, but, you know, trial and error.
Yeah, it's trial and error. It is what it is. I mean, and you've really proven quickly like what you can do with what you've got here. So, yeah, and you know, like Pencross is a great bentgrass.
It is.
Yeah, it handles the abuse really well. It crawls really well to recover. It handles the heat very well. It's a very good grass. I mean, so anyway, then let's talk a little bit more about like the specific challenges, both agronomic and then what and the business, you know, because like you're saying, this is you explained like the setup here as Middletown Country Club. Could you explain it again?
Yeah, so the setup here is that the township owns the actual property, the actual land. I think it works out to around, I want to say around 115, 120 acres.
Okay, great.
I would say about 90 acres of it is developed for grass if you take out, you know, the clubhouse, parking lot, and everything else.
So not a huge property.
No, it's not a huge property. And I think that's what adds to the intrigue because, like you said, the fairways are tight, the elevations, you know, and eventually it's like when you come here to play, if you just have never played here before, the course will eat you up. You know, I mean, if you're, we'll say a 15 handicap or worse, which most of the weekend golfers, you know, are, it will eat you up.
Yeah,
but
it's a challenge.
Anyway, so the township owns the land, and then what they do is they lease the land out to private owners, private entities. And the way that I understand it is that the owners that lease out the land from the township, they have to pay their lease. They're responsible for the bills,
right,
and the day-to-day operation. Everything after that is profit.
Yeah, wonderful.
So, you know, it works out. You know, it works out pretty well. So, you know,
as long as people are golfing.
As long as people are golfing, exactly. So, you know, and that's where myself and the crew come in. You know, and I think we've done pretty well. I mean, last year we had a couple weekends where we hit over for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know, we crossed over, you know, 750 rounds for a 3-day period.
It's huge.
You know, and I was telling you earlier, this last weekend, if you want to go from Friday through Monday, we were just up against 1,000 rounds. If you throw in Thursday, then we definitely cracked 1,000 rounds in 5 days.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, so I mean, we're starting to pump them out.
And I mean, what was it like when you got here?
When I got here, what I was told, I had played when it was Langhorne, back in the early 2000s.
Sure, you grew up here.
Yeah, I grew up in the area. But when I got here, I was told that, you know, a good day during the week was like 50 rounds.
Okay.
And a good day on the weekend was like 100, 125.
Okay, you're doubling that.
Yeah, so now we're doubling that. And we're seeing that we're doubling that.
Sure. Because you did it quickly. You did it very quickly. So, like, not every little corner of the course is ready to hold up to that.
Right.
I'm sure.
You know, and a lot of there were, you know, over the years, certain measures were taken. There were different owners that have gone through here. So there's a lot of things where if this was just a single owner, if this was just a township that owned it, and it was just one entity that ran the day-to-day operations, I think there would be a more consistent flow in conditions and everything out there. Whereas, you know, for this many years it was this company, then it was this company, then it was these people. So, you know, trying to find that balance, improve on what was there, you know, and then change the things that weren't working.
Yeah, you as Middletown Country Club are still right in the middle of the rebuilding process, I'm sure, and shaping it and trying to get to what your end vision is. I think most places are, but what's very important is that you're doing it while being profitable, like while
right,
quickly stepping it up, like quickly. Yeah.
So last year, when we went through the end of the year finances and everything, Bob Hill, he is the CFO and president. His wife is Maureen. She's the GM. He told me that we turned 11% profit against inflation. So technically, in my mind, I'm not an economist. If we're going 11% profit against inflation, then to me that's saying that we actually turned 17 to 17%.
Right.
So, you know, we're getting there. I think the changes that myself and the crew have been able to do is just basically, you know, limbing up certain tree lines so that there's more flow, more airflow, and also so that the golfers can find their ball and keep moving. You know, if you go online, the comments, complaints, compliments, you know, everybody was like, oh, the greens were great, you know, the fairways were great, but the pace of play, horrible.
Okay, well, it is a tough property.
Right, and that's the whole thing. I think the pace of play comes in with, especially now, because COVID was great for golf. Despite all the changes we had to make, whether it was putting spacers in the cups and nobody touched flag sticks and, you know,
all the goofy stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff we had to do for it, and we'll keep all that out. I think it was great. But at the same time, and I've said this before, I was on a previous podcast last year for this group of guys in the area, Hacks Across America.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and
that's a good name, dude.
Yeah, you know, and they're really good guys. And they asked me, you know, well, how do I feel about that? I said, I think it's great for the game of golf that everybody's playing.
Oh, yeah.
What I wish is that everybody that just went out and bought a set because they had nothing better that they could do played with somebody that truly loved the game. because you see a lot of things out here where the guys, drive wherever you want, don't replace divots, don't fix ball marks, popping curbs and getting too close to greens and everything else.
Golf etiquette.
Yeah, just, standard golf etiquette. Of course, one of the biggest pet peeves, I'm going to put my sunscreen on the green.
Oh, the worst.
So, but, overall, I think what's going on here, I'm very happy. Ownership seems happy. The crew is absolutely knocking out of the park every day.
Yeah, you've mentioned the crew a couple times. It's not a big crew, right? How many guys?
No, it's not. Really, right now I'm without an equipment manager, mechanic, so there's a lot of hands-on stuff with that. But right now I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys. But out of those 7, only 3 are here every day for right now.
Right.
And then, in the summer, I'll get up to around 8 or 9, but they're seasonal.
Sure. And so you're really running like 5 full-timers, including yourself.
Yeah, but like I said, it's seasonal. Halloween, Thanksgiving, depending on what the weather goes to, it will just be myself and, my assistant Brady.
Wow. Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. So, the challenge for me, I guess, is trying to make as many improvements as I can during the season while I have the manpower. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've always advocated, whether I was at Tarsdale, when I was at Metedeconk, when I was at Deerwood, and now here, is that I want as many guys as possible safely cross-trained on as many pieces of machinery and daily operation things as possible, so that I'm never jammed up, and then so that way, if we get a break in the action and we can go tackle a project,
yes,
I can pull almost anybody aside to help complete it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, it's a must-do for any crew, but particularly for a crew this size. You need to have a crew of competent greenkeepers that can do it all.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, I have younger guys, some of the guys that are on the crew right now, do I think they're going to stay in turf? 50-50 probably.
Right.
At best.
Right.
So the one thing I don't want, especially when McDonald's is paying $15 an hour, or one of the dozen Amazon warehouses in the area is paying $20, $25 an hour, I don't want them to get bored. I don't want them to get complacent. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to think, okay, it's another day of weed whacking. It's another day of raking traps. And I want them to walk in every day and, actually wonder what they're going to be getting into if I didn't tell them the day before.
Yeah.
Where it's not like, I'll get on the 4500, I'll go mow rough, and that keeps the crew loose. That keeps the crew motivated.
Oh, that's a key factor in everything that a superintendent does is how do I keep this camaraderie, motivation, keep everyone involved so that, because it is a grind. It gets to be a grind. So let's kind of get into some agronomics, because you made some changes really quickly. How did you jump on that? And how did you prioritize? That's really a key question.
Basically when I first made my rounds around here, it was in February. And luckily it was a fairly decent day. It was like 40, 50 degrees. So, I just, we went hole by hole, myself, Bob, the CFO, and Brady, along with another employee is no longer with us. We rode around hole by hole, and I just had my phone out, and I basically, okay, hole number 1, this is what I think needs to change. Hole number 2, this one, and just I made that list for myself. And then when I had my introductory meeting with the membership and the regular golfers and the guys that play in any number of the leagues that we have here, I basically, threw myself to the wolves, and I said, bring it. Tell me right. What you want to see, what right. you need to do.
Right.
What do you feel I need to do? What changes need to be made. And everything came down to the greens hold too much water. The bunkers are a mess. This hole's a mess. This hole's a mess. And then just prioritize from there.
So greens hold too much water. They were soft as well.
Yeah, they were soft. They're they were puffy, and mostly those are the ones. Like I said, I have the original push up native soil greens out there. There's a couple of them still left, and those ones were the worst ones. So for me, it was just talking to the crew, finding out what was done before, down to what type of material for top dressing, what kind of tines, were you pulling cores, were you not pulling cores, and then going over the spray records and seeing where things were. And I was fortunate enough to quickly identify where those deficits and those weaknesses were.
Okay.
And, like I said earlier, I haven't pulled cores since I've been here. A lot of it now is trying to get a more porous soil in there, and it's going with the straight greens grade 270, throwing it down into the holes, and not pulling cores, so I can change that profile.
You're diluting like crazy. You're pounding the top dressing out there, it sounds like.
And anytime where I see we're going to have, in season anyway, just because the porosity of the greens varies and everything, with the exception, of course, of the USGA and the one California green I have. Anytime I see that we have, a definite shot, and by definite shot, I mean it's going to rain within 12 hours, and it's definitely saying we're going to get at least 3/4 of an inch of rain, we're out there throwing 150 pounds per thousand, just a very light top dressing,
right, just
to work it in.
Right.
And that's worked. That has been one of the main things that have worked. And when we can go out there with a 3/8 needle tine, 3 inches deep, and just, let them breathe, let them vent, let that sand work into the profile. And in most cases, before the rain event's even over, you wouldn't even know we were on the green.
That's right. Yeah. So you're just working that sand down in there.
Just working it down in there. And that's been the biggest help,
So you also take that opportunity when holes are open and you to get out the 333. That's been a product, the Myco Replenish 333 that you've mentioned.
Absolutely.
You've leaned on hard.
Absolutely. I learned about the EarthWorks and the 333 when I was working for Aaron McCurdy up at Metedeconk before he moved on to Shore Acres. And
okay. I was wondering who was at Metedeconk when you were there.
Yeah,
so you
when I was
for
there,
Aaron.
Yeah, I worked for Aaron, and
excellent.
It was a great experience. It really was. Like, I mean, look. By no means am I perfect, and I knew a little bit when I came in. I knew so much more when I left.
Oh, he's a great grass grower. Great superintendent.
Exactly, and but I learned about myself too. When it was coming towards the end of my contract, for the reasons that for the reason I chose and everything, I thanked him for that year, and I moved on. And it was a shock to him, from the way that the interaction went down and everything. But we're still in contact. He's still on my resume. Yeah.
He'll be a reference for you forever, dude.
Right, and it's just an unbelievable wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, that's excellent. Was it a time thing? Was it like because it wasn't where you grew up either? I mean, it wasn't near home. It was like kind of difficult.
Yeah, no, it was definitely difficult. I mean, my commute was 40 minutes every day.
Right. And you've got 4 kids.
Yeah, I have 4 kids, but I mean that was, it was different though because that was 5-6 years ago now.
Okay.
So I mean, right now my kids range in age from 15 to 22. Mm-hmm. The 3 girls are all teenagers.
Yeah.
So, and Dylan just graduated college from Slippery Rock. He's 22. So for me, at that point they were much younger.
Yeah, you needed to be around more.
Right. And, there were a couple, things that happened and things that had to change because Daddy was at work and this, that, and the other thing. And, I realized that, okay, I've gone from Union League from Tarsdale, Frankfort to Union League, then it became Union League Tarsdale. Mm-hmm. I wanted to work in that environment. I wanted to work in that, high budget, high demand atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And they'll be hosting the Corn Prairie tournament later on this summer. And
that's right.
And I'll be up there with I've already talked to Andy. I'll be up there volunteering with him and helping him out.
So cool, dude.
You know,
Andrew Dooley.
No, Andy Malik up at Matita.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But yeah, last year when
they hosted the collegiate event.
Yeah, the PGA Works event.
Right.
You know, and that was just awesome to watch. I mean, first everything that they've done down at Tarsdale.
Mm-hmm.
You know, since I've left,
and they're building that par 3 right now.
They're building the par 3 right now. You know, and that's really going to be something.
But anyway, like I see the point that you're making, that like there's different levels of like golf course, like and you know, and it's wonderful to be at a place where you can provide golf for a wide range of people, you know, and put out a great product, but also know that like you don't have to be here for 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday.
Right. And I don't have to. You know, but I don't have to, and I'm sure my fiance Jackie's going to hear this. You know, I'm blessed with a turf wife. You know, she understands. Well, because we started dating when I was in school at Rutgers.
Okay.
So she saw that demand, and then she saw everything else that went with it. So she understands there is very much a winter Chuck, and there is very much a summer Chuck.
Got it.
And then there's a very anxious Chuck in between winter and summer.
Oh, man.
You know, and getting everything going. But I'm blessed in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, look, the goal is every day to exceed the expectations set by our limitations. I say that to the guys.
I love that line, dude.
Yeah, that's my goal. I tell the guys, you know, you should always want to come into work, and you should always want to leave work. You shouldn't have to feel as though I need to be there. I have to be there. You know, and you have to find that work-life balance. I mean, I've had things in the last couple years where I'm, you know, especially in the last 3 years. Well, maybe 5 now. I think about medically in my family.
Okay.
Where I'm eternally grateful for the experience that I had at Tarsdale, and especially the one I had at Matita Conch. Mm-hmm. But I'm also very grateful for what I've learned. And we went to school together, Brandon Prine and I, over at Deerwood.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah,
we carpooled together. We were in class for a good 3-4 weeks before we realized we only lived 2 miles apart.
Oh, excellent.
So
dude,
you know,
nuts.
2:00 in the morning, you know, with Fox News going in the background or whatever, you know, working on papers and working on projects.
You guys were hanging,
right? But you know, Brandon was the one, you know, where I really learned, you know, to find that work-life balance.
Got it.
You know, and it's something that really stuck with me, and I think it's something that really helped me over the last couple of years. Joyce, my youngest daughter, I guess it's just over 2 years now. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Oh, man, dude.
So, you know, I don't know how I would have handled the demand of where I was previously to where to where I was when it happened. And we were very lucky. Prayers were answered. The tumor was encapsulated. You know, a couple organs had to go, but you know, she's in full remission, full recovery, no
That's
problems whatsoever. You know, but you know, then it was my mom was in renal failure. You know, and dealing with, because my sister lives all the way out towards Harrisburg, that kind of stuff fell back on me, you know, and she had to go through a kidney transplant.
Yeah,
you know, and so it's like
you need that work-life balance. Like
you have to have that balance. Like
we work for our families, right? Like,
yeah, well, we work for our families, and our families have to work for us,
right?
You know what I
right.
mean? Like we need that motivation. It's like, you know what, I got to get home because I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, we have this going on, and you know, for me, you know, I tell the guys all the time, you know, when they're hired, if you have something with your family and you want to be there, just tell me. Don't ask. Tell me, and we'll make it work. And that goes back to what I said about making sure everybody's cross-trained. Mm-hmm. So I don't want employee A coming to me saying, hey, I can't be here, you know, XYZ, you know, and then me just, oh, no, what are we going to do? It's fine. Okay, well, if A can't be here, B can do it. You know, and modify the schedule. But it's important to me, you know, especially when Joyce got sick.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And you made it through that. You were
right. I made it through that, and I'm grateful for my faith. I'm grateful for my support system with Jackie, and back to my parents. My father brought me into this business. He never had the official title, or a business card or anything, but he called himself the senior foreman at Tarsdale.
Yeah.
He came on to Tarsdale in '92. He left in 2000, I want to say 14, somewhere around there.
Excellent.
And he's who I learned from, just
senior greenkeeper. Yeah.
Just learning how, to execute tasks and to find that balance. He might be at the course, for 10 hours that day. But then at night, he was coaching a basketball team. He was coaching a baseball team. He was a president of the local athletic club. He was Cub Master on my Cub Scout pack.
Yeah.
So
this is a sort of life you can have as a greenkeeper, as a superintendent.
Right, and it's like I said, it's hard to find that balance. This job, this career, this path, especially with being a superintendent, it is nonstop. There's always something going on. There's something going wrong. There's something going great. But as much as you should be healthy from the soil up, you got to be healthy from the soul out.
Absolutely.
So you can't bury yourself in your work and neglect the family. No. And at the same time, you have to find that balance where you're not overly focused on the family and work suffers.
Yeah, they have to work together.
Right.
You have to manage that time and that effort, and it has to work together. And but like treating your crew and your bosses like a team, like family.
Right.
It's part of that. It's a respect thing, and then everyone respects each other and each other's time.
Right, and you should always have an approachable attitude. You should never have to be standoffish.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to finding that balance. There was a quote I saw. I can't even remember how long ago it was. But it said, if you don't make time for your wellness, you're going to be forced to make time for your illness.
Yeah, there you go.
And, whether it be mental or physical or, spiritual or whatever, however you want to handle, that side of your life, you have to find that balance.
You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can find that balance in these jobs. Mm-hmm. Like, even when presented with a challenge, like you have, like you've been presented with a challenge, but you make it work, you balance it out, and I think you lean hard on making the right decision. Like you have to, if you're making the wrong decision in the daily work, then playing catch up, then it's hard to maintain that balance.
Yeah, I mean, you see stuff from the ad council with the government with drinking and and everything where it says friends know when to say when.
Right.
It's the same thing here.
Right.
You have to know when to say when.
Can't bite off more than you can chew, sort of thing.
Right, and I mean, for me, I love this job. I will be in this career field the rest of my life. Jackie and I have retirement plans, and those retirement plans include an RV.
Yes.
And me, stopping in and working part-time at a golf course for like a month and a half and living out of the RV.
There's a lot of superintendents that retire that way.
And it's about finding that balance. But, with everything that's happened with Joyce, with my mother, with my father, a couple of years ago being on life support with problems that he was having, the one thing that I've really come to, like, I've always known it, but I think over the last couple of years more than ever, I've gotten to the point to where I realize, God willing, I'm not going to, I'll be 85 years old.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be flashing back to a day where I would like, you know what, I should have done this on that hole, No, it's not going to happen. Exactly. But,
But you are going to look back and say, I'm really proud of myself and the whole team that took Middletown when we got there, and they were only doing 70 rounds a day. And because that's the way they were presenting, that we were able to turn the course around and draw people in.
Right,
and that's awesome.
Right, and look, the way I look at it is, the more money we bring in, the more money that we can put in, and make those improvements on the course, and to the crew and to the community. So,
that's it, dude. Yeah, you're doing it. You're definitely doing it, and you hear it from the golfers. They're happy.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely hearing from the golfers, especially the men's association, the paying membership. They've told me, once or twice a week, hey, I like what you did over here, and whatever. And my thing going back to the crew, and how I don't do it alone.
No,
thank you. Mm-hmm. Now go tell him.
Yeah, excellent. Tell me a little bit, because I brought it up at the onset about your tweets. You catch some flack sometimes.
Sometimes I definitely do, but I mean that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
I mean
you tweet out some good EarthWorks stuff, which I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that on the air. I mean, really appreciate your EarthWorks tweets. I mean, and you've got the results to back it up. You see it. You can make it happen.
Right. I mean, look. We can plug away all day at EarthWorks. We can plug away all day at Syngenta or Bear or anybody else. It's all about knowing your chemistries and getting it done right. As far as
doing the right stuff at the right time.
Right stuff at the right time at the right amount. But with EarthWorks, I really came into it like, at Matita. Aaron used it, for siding projects and other areas.
He used some liquids, but I think you got most of your liquid experience at Deerwood.
At Deerwood with Brandon, yeah. Usually rolling with the 555 package.
Yeah, Trilogy, CalVantage, Protein Plus.
Yep.
And you use those products at a lower rate even. And
yeah, no, I use, so the 333 mycorrhizer, it tells you 10 pounds per 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I go at 7.5.
Because it works for your spreaders.
And it works for my spreaders, and this way it's not, the way I look at it is like, okay, are those the tire marks from the first pass, or are they the tire marks from the second pass? Because when you're out there doing the aerification, the siding
tricks, baby.
Yeah, it's like, wait, which flag was that for?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, with the 333, it says 10. I put it into my top dressing mix. When I do the aerification, I go at 7.5 per thou. With the 555, it says anywhere from 5 to 10 ounces per 1,000. I'm going at like 2.1.
Right.
2.5.
Right. But you're consistent.
Right, but I'm consistent. And, like I said earlier, I mean, that was all about finding the balance of what worked with what, with all the greens out here. So, I didn't have one green that was lime green, and then I had another one that was emerald, or evergreen.
Throw the listener that cool trick that you told me with the greens tank, that you dial back your carrier volume so that you were able to have some left over.
Yeah. So last year, Brandon Prine, he left Deerwood for Fisher and Son.
Right.
Okay. So when he came out, and you're well aware of this because actually you did the testing. So we took all the soil samples and we tried to figure out where we were at, where we had to add lime, where we had to change the soils and everything else. So, what I've done is I only have a 175 gallon sprayer.
Okay.
With the economy and deliveries and everything else, I could order a new one.
Right.
I'll see it in 2025.
Yeah, you're right.
So what I've been able to do, first thing I did was go through the sprayer, clean the sprayer, detail it, clean everything out. I've replaced more than half the hoses on it already. But what I decided to do, I went out, took all the measurements and everything, and I honestly went out there and just did a dry run with just straight water.
Cool.
Just to learn, where my turns are and everything else. Anyway, it worked out to 2.64 acres.
Got it.
So what I decided to do is like, okay, now I can max out the sprayer at 55 to 60 gallons an acre if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Probably around 57. I could do that. Or I could dial it back and just make the adjustments, to the amounts I'm mixing into the tank. So what I did was I dialed it back to 50 gallons an acre Everything is 50 gallons an acre.
Cool. Fairways, tees,
greens, tees, the whole 9 yards.
It's awesome, man.
You know, so this way, if there is a case where there's an emergency and I can't spray under Pennsylvania law, one of my guys can under my number, so long as I'm on premises within 24 hours of, either or. That doesn't happen anyway.
Because you're here, baby.
I'm here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I dialed it back to 50 gallons an acre, and then basically what ends up happening is when I get done spraying, I'm left with just under an acre worth of mix, and I'm in the habit now where the day before I spray, whether it be fairways, tees, or greens, I take a ride around the course and see where any kind of my weak areas are, and that extra goes out to those weak areas.
Yes.
So there are times where, a certain fairway or approach might actually get 2 soil applications in back-to-back weeks.
Excellent.
But it's healthier.
Yeah.
So we see that change.
It's just. I mean, I wanted that story on the air here because it's just so efficient. It's such an efficient way to green keep and take care of a property with limited resources and limited staff and limited,
Right.
When you're limited and restricted by things. What was the line about expectations, limitations?
Yeah. So I mean, you should always work to exceed the expectations set by your limitations.
Right.
And
so you just loophole. You just kind of biohack the limitation there.
Yeah.
And
in a dream scenario, mention about like shipping delays and product and everything with the economy and whatever, with all the delays. In a perfect world, at least in my perfect world here at Middletown, I would have a 300-gallon sprayer.
Right.
And I would be able to spray all the greens and all the tees on one tank. And then that way, it wasn't like, oh, when was I here? When was I there? That way, those 2 areas that make them, that have the most impression on a golfer, because you're either really happy on the green or you're really ticked off on the tee, and vice versa, or both.
Right.
Either way, depending on how you're playing.
Often both. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm often both too. I mean, last year I played here and I shot 94. And I had a smile on my face for a good 24 hours, I was just like...
Absolutely.
I was like, wait a minute, you can do just 2 numbers there instead of 3? But, people ask me all the time, like, oh, do you golf? I'm like, I own clubs.
Right, right. I say I golf for work, I'd like to golf more, but anyway. Yeah. Okay, so you make those areas nice. Yeah, dude. That's it. It's really cool. You also lean on C3, I know.
Yep. I lean on C3.
Because you're ryegrass everywhere.
I'm ryegrass everywhere, and it's a challenge.
Ryegrass loves C3 too.
Yeah, it does love C3, but it is, it's very temperamental, obviously, because you don't have the rhizomes, you don't have the stolons, and when it wants to check out, until it gets a little bit of rain, it's out. So... you do what you can there.
But you throw the seed out. You're seeding like crazy.
Yeah, I'm seeding like crazy. Hopefully, if we have as good of a year as we did last year, when the final numbers come in, usually what happened last year was in October, I was told, hey, you have to spend X amount of dollars for, whatever purpose. This is where we were at in the budget, and this is what you have to do.
Right.
Because I knew of the massive tree projects we had coming up, bought a grinder.
Yeah.
$40,000 grinder.
Nice.
This year, if everything goes well, and I don't have to buy a piece of machinery, then I'm going to be overseeding with turf type fescue. Okay. And what I want to do is
rough and surrounds and that.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to go the first 10 feet off the fairway, and at that point, with spring and fall fertilization, plus, regular agronomic and cultural practices, I'm hoping the goal is that fescue will just expand itself out, and eventually, we'll never be wall to wall, right? But at least give myself, and the owners, and especially the golfers, a different appearance, like where
some definition. Well,
not only definition, but just tolerance.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing here, because we are public, for the most part, we have our men's association and members, but there aren't many. just something that can take the beating. That 150 to 250 to. I think last year our peak was one day we had 271.
Yeah, it's insane.
And that was in July.
Yeah, it's an insane amount.
When it was an inferno out there. So
yeah, we were about 1,000 degrees for about 3 weeks straight.
Oh yeah, last summer was something I've never seen.
Nope.
And I've been in, like you said earlier, I moved over to the ground screw under Brian Mazie at Torresdale in '96.
Wow.
And at that point I was still caddying on the weekends, and
Right.
that got old real quick because once the members found out that I was on the grounds crew and I was also a caddy with some loops that I would catch, it turned into 4 hours of. Why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And then Brian be driving by. I'm like, why don't you tell him? But
honestly, I've heard this a couple times. There's never like any issues, any scuttlebutt until the caddies get back in the spring, and then there's all of a sudden these kind of like little gossips,
right. But I mean, there's little things that hang on me. Certain things that some people have said to me throughout my life, whether it be personal or career. And I remember, I guess this was back in like 2000. Mm-hmm. And Brian, 2000 was a moderate summer, wasn't too bad. Rain, average, I guess. And Brian had a Greens Committee meeting the one morning. It was like always the first Thursday, I think.
Okay.
And he came back to the shop and he goes, "Well, boys, I guess we're doing all right." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "They're only complaining about the weeds around the trees in the tree line."
Whoa.
He's like, and he, jokingly, Brian, very casually, "That's the way you want it to be."
That's the biggest victory you can get.
That's the victory you get, where it's like, it's the very bad shots and the not so good golfers that are saying, "Well, I didn't like the weeds around that tree." And you go to find that tree and you're
like
10 feet into the wood line. You're going to find weeds here.
30, 40 yards off the fairway.
Yeah.
Oh man. But that's so you've seen it all. Yeah. What's on tap for the rest of the year here? Like what are some of the goals for the rest of the season?
I mean, right now, over the winter, back in December, I think I touched on when we were down the AC Turf Show, we had close to $100,000 worth of car path renovation done out here.
Okay.
So I mean, like the 18th hole here, it was actually a dirt trail.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So when it rained, that washed down into the grass, and you're scraping mud off the rough and everything else. So with that being done, we still have a couple areas that we need to patch up. We still have a couple tree wells that need to be filled in and or grinded out. But for myself right now, we just rebuilt the approach on the 9th fairway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all done. The approach on the 6th hole was done. So now, as soon as we get rain, there's going to be an aggressive attack on the tees. Like I was telling you earlier when we were riding around there, a couple of the tees were rebuilt in the last 5 to 10 years when they were, just say like a subpar soil was used, high sodium, high sugar. So it doesn't really hold up well at all.
Sugar, you mean the sugar sand?
Yeah, the sugar sand.
Yeah. Really fine kind of.
Yeah, really fine, really porous, but it doesn't hold on.
Right.
It doesn't hold on to anything. So it's sort of like, if you're supposed to be watering in your slurry, you're like, I'm going to let that sit for an hour and then I'll water it in.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, basically for us right now, I mean, we're getting into the season. The crew's happy. Members are happy. Owners are happy. So it's just trying to keep everything,
cranking.
Yeah, keep everything cranking on there. But like I said, I mean, the main project is going to be getting the tees. I mean, as much as I'm a glutton for punishment going on Google and reading reviews, it's either it's the pace of play, or the tees are as hard as a rock. So just keep on turning them around. We were able to turn a couple around last year, especially our 12th, and that was another.
Oh, that was a great tweet.
Yeah, that was another 333, project, turning it over, and it was aggressive. I mean, we went over with the vertiseeder, the aerifier, slit seed, drop seed, 333. Wait a couple days, went out there, hit it with the 555 mix.
But that's what it takes.
But that's what it takes, and a lot of it, I'm seeing a lot of improvement in the turf this year, especially, and I'm grateful to the owners, truly like, taking time to listen to me.
Excellent,
and then
well, they're very happy with you. I met Maureen and Bob here. Like they're very happy with you.
And I'm greatly appreciative of them, because there's only been a handful of times where I'm like, I want to do something. They're like, and they pull back a little. And then most of the time when I tell them this is what I want to do, it becomes a capital thing, and it becomes, okay, why do you want to do it? Mm-hmm. How much will it cost? How long will it take to complete? And go from there. Mm-hmm. And, that's why we have that brand new Vermeer grinder down the shop. I told him, I said, if we want to improve turf, if we want to improve play and everything else, we need to make this happen. Yeah. And they did.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm in a good spot right now where I have an ownership that has bought on to the changes I want to make. And even more so, I have a crew that right now I ask them to do something that gets done. But they also understand, a lot of that, at least from my perspective, and I hope I'm not being, too self-righteous. They know that, I don't do car pathology. I'm not going to drive around in my cart and point and say, go do that and go do that. I'll be in the hole right there with you. Yes. I love to get dirty.
You're a working superintendent.
Yeah. Well, everybody's a working superintendent. I like to think of it as like, my thing is, and I heard this a lot from Rich Buckley when we were in school and everything, is like, you might be better than me, but you won't outwork me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I love getting dirty. Jackie hates it.
Oh, okay.
There was, when I was over at Deerwood, old irrigation system, there were a couple times where I came home and I was absolutely filthy.
Oh, man.
And I'm changing in the shed out back. And
before you're allowed in the house.
Before I'm allowed in the house. And then I'm grabbing the hose and I'm hosing off my clothes and hosing myself off. He's like, you're not coming in the house like that.
Oh, man.
But that's the stuff I love. It's like, I was talking to one of my friends over Memorial Day weekend, and he said his daughter was having an issue trying to choose her career. Right. Where she wants to go. She's going to graduate in high school. Right. And she had asked him, and she was there to confirm it, not that she was going to tell us that her dad was lying. But he had said to me that she was asking, do you know someone who works really hard, but absolutely loves their job no matter what? And he told her, like, talk to Chuck. Chuck works, whatever. And it's just, but I love it. I love the challenge of this. I get, like I said, I started caddying when I was 13, stayed caddying until I was 20, 21. Right. And you can't beat it. There's some weekends where I'm like, I can't believe, especially in like you say, you made a couple $100 in a week under the table right now. It's like, that's not bad. Couple $100 when you're a 17-year-old kid. Right.
And it was 2000.
Well, yeah, not even. Yeah. Look, I paid for a lot of things in cash. I went to a lot of concerts in my high school career.
You had a good time.
But I had a good time, and a lot of that goes back to the ownership that was there at Tarsville Frankfurt, and the ownership that's there now obviously is great. Oh yeah. Union League is amazing. Jeff McFadden and Sandy that's down there. And everybody else, especially with Dooley taking over, mm-hmm. And the repertoire and the history that he brings with him and the experience,
they got some cool stuff going on.
Oh, they definitely do. But, like I said, I love this.
Yeah, dude.
I just absolutely love it.
We're blessed to be in this. Yeah.
Right. It's like you go to a party, it's like, oh, what are you? Oh, I'm a golf course superintendent. So you cut grass. That's exactly what I cut grass.
Yep.
But
that and everything else.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I absolutely love.
Well, your enthusiasm came through on this podcast, pal.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. You're a very good guest. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, thanks so much.
I appreciate it.
Okay, you got it.